Hi, everyone, and welcome to A Story of Light, a live stream musical journey in 19 days. If you've just stumbled onto this live stream, my name is Luke Slott. I'm a musician in Dublin, and I mainly focus on setting to music the Baha'i sacred writings. And for the first 19 days of March, I'm doing this series of daily live streams in preparation for the release of my new album, Home of Light, which is coming out a little bit later this year, and it's a collection of new songs based on the writings of Abdul Baha. And if you're not familiar with Abdul Baha, he was the son of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and he's really cherished as a role model to Baha'is and friends around the world. And 2021 marks the centenary of his passing 100 years ago in 1921. Hence the new album coming out this year in his honor. So, just in order to give you some context for the release of the album, I'm doing these daily live streams during the first 19 days of March because this is a very special time of year for Baha'is when we enter a period of fasting where we fast for 19 days for each day from sunrise to sunset. And it's really a special time of year when we try to just refocus our minds on the truly important things in life: love, family, friendship, community, compassion for others. And so for each of these days, I'm going live for about 15 to 20 minutes to share some storytelling and a song live from here at AP Studios Dublin, where we are recording the new album. Now, I have to tell you that for the live streams, I'm not going to sing any of the songs from the new album because I don't want to spoil them before the official studio recordings are released later in the year. And this project is it's kind of a way for me to just personally study the history of the Baha'i faith as a personal passion just by talking about it on YouTube. And I'm hoping that, just by talking through it, I can understand it better myself. And if it's informative and useful for you, then all the better. And I hope that it provides some context for the album release later this year. So with all that said, today is March 1st. It's the first day of the 19-day fast. And this is the first episode of A Story of Light. And I know that some of you watching might be familiar with a video series that I did a couple of years ago called The Gate of Heaven Diary. And this was a video series that focused specifically on the story of the Bab. And it should be linked in the description below. I hope that's working. I'll check it afterwards. And I just wanted to say, for the purpose of this series of live streams, I'm going to briefly recap just a few of the major events from that story, just because, without going into too much detail. And if you want to explore it in more detail, you can check out the Gate of Heaven Diary. But I just think that it's such an essential part of the overall story that I think it's important to provide some information about the Bab before moving on to other parts of the story. So, to begin this musical journey that we're going to set out on together over the coming 19 days, we need to first travel back in time a little bit. So I want to invite you all, wherever you're watching from, I want to invite you to just sit back and relax your mind and use your imagination as we travel nearly 200 years back in time to the middle of the 19th century, which was this peculiar period in world history, a period of this worldwide kind of apocalyptic excitement. During the mid-19th century, there was this unprecedented efflorescence of these new movements that were simultaneously emerging in different religions in different parts of the world, all at the same time. And all of these movements revolved around one central and common idea. And the idea was that the ancient promises of the world's religions, promises which describe a future in which humanity will go through some kind of worldwide transformation that will be ushered in by a great promised figure who will guide humanity to its golden age of universal peace. And these are promises that are shared by just about all of the world's religions. These movements revolved around the idea that these promises were going to be fulfilled in the 19th century. And these movements became particularly prominent in Christian communities. And many Christian scholars had come to the incredibly specific conclusion that the promises in the Bible concerning the end of the world seemed to be pointing towards the year 1844. And as more and more people started to study their scriptures in this way, they kept finding this year, 1844, 1844, over and over again. And of course, there were people who laughed at this and scoffed and said, this is all nonsense. No, nothing's going to happen. Why are you getting so upset? But some of these people became so convinced that something extraordinary was going to happen that entire communities of people in America and in Europe sold off their possessions in preparation for this great cosmic event. And one group in Germany, known as the Templars, went so far as to abandon their homes and move all the way to Palestine, that little tumultuous corner of the Mediterranean, known throughout history as the Holy Land, in order to await what they understood to be the imminent return of Jesus Christ. And these German Templars settled in the Holy Land, at the foot of that mountain of biblical fame, Mount Carmel, which today rises up over the modern-day city of Haifa in Israel. And they lived there, and they waited, standing each day on the slopes of Mount Carmel, gazing up into the heavens expectantly. And 1844 came and passed, and nothing happened. The stars didn't fall, the mountains didn't crumble, Jesus Christ didn't descend from the heavens, and, well, the world didn't end. The sun rose and the sun set. And this period, which was known quite famously at the time, even across newspaper headlines, as the Great Awakening of 1844, actually went down in history as the Great Disappointment. And it was largely forgotten about in the Western world. But strangely, what many of these people of a Western Judeo-Christian background weren't aware of was that at the very same time, there was an almost exactly parallel experience taking place just a little bit further east in the Muslim world. And Muslim scholars had come to the mysteriously similar conclusion that the promises in their traditions concerning the end of the world and the coming of the great promised one foretold in the Quran were pointing towards the same year, 1844. It was as if the promises of these different religions, unbeknownst to each other, were all pointing towards the same event in the same year. And in the springtime of that year, in Iran, or Persia as it was known at the time, a 24-year-old youth who was known to his peers as a very humble, mild-mannered, sweet-natured person, sent a shockwave through the Middle East when he made the staggering claim that he was the one that the people of both the East and the West were waiting for. But he said in so many words that they would never find him by standing on the slopes of mountains, gazing up into the heavens. They would only find him by looking into their own hearts. And so for our first musical step on this 19-day journey, I'd like to now sing for you a prayer from the Baha'i writings. This is one of my favorite prayers, and I think that this prayer really, it encapsulates the ultimate goal that really lies at the heart of all of the world's religions and spiritual traditions, and that is the goal of a pure heart. So if you're fasting today, I hope you have a good fast. If you have fasted today, depending on what part of the world you're in, I hope you had a good fast. The sun just set in Ireland a little while ago, so we already broke fast here. So I wish you well with if you're fasting, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for day 2 of A Story of Light. This song is called "Create in Me a Pure Heart." Create in me a pure heart, oh my God, oh my God, and renew a tranquil conscience within me, oh my hope. Through the Spirit of power, confirm thou me in thy cause. O my best beloved, confirm thou me in thy cause, and by the light of thy glory reveal unto me thy path. By the light of thy glory reveal unto me thy path. O thou, the goal of my desire, and through the power of thy transcendent might, lift me up unto the heaven of thy holiness, O source of my being, and by the breezes of thine eternity, gladden me, O thou who art my God. Let thine everlasting melodies breathe tranquility on me, O my companion. Let the riches of thine ancient countenance deliver me from all except thee, O my Master, O my and let the tidings of the revelation of thine incorruptible essence bring me joy. O thou who art the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the hidden, the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the hidden of the hidden of the hidden of the hidden.